Yo, 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 welcome back to the Further Your Lifestyle podcast, conversations on lifestyle, passions, and hustles. My name's Chris Furlong. I am your host, and I'm super excited to be back here having the conversation with you. Episode 56, it's exciting once again to be back here, and I hope you're all having a wonderful time. I hope you're having a wonderful day, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, however you're listening. And I want to dive straight into it. We're at the time of this episode, we're basically 90 days into 2022. And, what I like to do around 90 days, which is the end of the first quarter, is kind of just take a moment to reflect and take a moment to do a bit of a pulse check. And, being 90 days into the year, it seems fitting that you take some time to just check and see how you're progressing. Now, if you've been following this podcast for a while, if you've been following from the start of the year, I have been talking about these things around setting goals and how if you want to be what you want this year, you're going to have to do a few things. And that comes down to you need to be willing to change, you need to be willing to take action, and you need to be willing to show up. And we're going to reflect on that today. I'm going to be talking through some of the things that I've achieved or haven't achieved and how I'm progressing. But hopefully from going through this process, and it is a process that you can follow along to, and maybe just, check in on yourself, have that pulse check and see how you're progressing. And I'll be clear from the straight up that, it's not always about that you have to be where you want to be, right? Because this is what helps us grow. This is what helps challenges us. This is what helps us think differently. If I was doing everything and I was achieving everything and it was perfect, well, it would probably be boring and I wouldn't be growing and I wouldn't be learning. So there is good things that come from those things that we aren't necessarily, kicking butt at or actually achieving to the dot. Whereas other areas we probably are achieving or overachieving, and we'll chat about that. So let's be real. Let's get into it, and let's chat about reflecting on the last 90 days. And you can do this at any point in time. I like to do this on a regular basis, more so 90 days, mid-year, and then, as I get closer to the end of the year, building that kind of roadmap plan to make sure I am ticking off those goals or how I'm going to do it. So let's just dive straight into it. The first thing that we want to do, and this is without context, this is without, diving in or reflecting on the actual goals that you have set for the year, but actually just take some time, and I want you to do this, whether it means you have to pause this podcast and listen to it later so you can actually do this, or maybe you can do it wherever you are. But I want you to join in and actually take the steps in actually trying to do this with me. So if you are running or if you're driving, think about, can you do this later or can you do this while you're doing it? You might have to jot it down in your head, but let's be realistic about it. You're basically going to be making a list of, regardless of whatever goals you set, regardless of what you've been achieving, is I want you to think back in the last 90 days of your most memorable wins and achievements. They can be big wins, they can be small wins, just anything that you think is a win at this point of time. And I'm going to share some of mine. In the last 90 days, the first things that come to mind is I've launched my YouTube memberships. I've increased my podcast growth. It's about probably 70%. And that's basically on average daily downloads. So, I started at a certain number at the start of the year that I was doing per day, and now that's gone up by 73%. I've completed 5 of 6 half marathons. I've also completed my 2Bs. I've even signed up for my next 50K ultra marathon. I've started mentoring. I'm mentoring someone, but I'm also getting some coaching of my own. And that was definitely not something I had planned for at the start of this year. And I've delegated some workload. I've got some workload that I'm not having to do and it's getting done for me. So a few quick wins there, and there's probably plenty more, but those are the ones that have really come basically fresh off the cuff that I can resonate with. And there's probably more, but that's the whole point, is you want the things that coming fresh off the cuff. And the whole purpose we do this is, this helps you see what's been happening, what you've been doing. It also might help you realize that maybe your priorities have changed. They've shifted, and maybe you're doing things that you hadn't planned, or you're doing more than that you thought you could, or you're doing less. But that just helps paint the picture of what you've been able to achieve in 90 days. And there's no right or wrong with this. It's about what you've done, right? And that's the only person that you can be accountable to, is you. How about you? As I said, this list isn't to compare, but it's to help you to start thinking about how do we then take this to the next level. So once you've got that list, let's move on. So next, what we want to do is we essentially want to recapture or redefine or just call out or identify or bring them up on screen, or however you've tracked your goals or listed your goals, is just identify what your intentions were for this year, whether they were goals, whether they were intentions or whatever they were, and understanding what their importance and priority were. Usually the way you can do this is trying to group them up into similar areas. So maybe, you might have had some goals or some intentions around family, relationships, and friends. So that's all bundled together. You might have had something around experience, passions, and emotions, or traveling. You might put them all together. Then there might be something with business, money, and growth. Or then, there might be another around getting fit or being healthy or nutrition or diet, and you can bundle them all together. So what you want to do is understand what your little groups are, your bundles, and then you're going to start to, list out what those goals were underneath those. Just so you've got that perspective. Within these areas, that you had set the intentions and set the goals, start to check in on each one. We're not going to go through in detail of all mine because I've got quite a lot. You can check them out on my own personal YouTube. But what you're going to do is, as you go through, if you're up or down, that's what you want to tick. You want to say, are you up or you down? And if you're up, you want to celebrate. You want to give yourself a pat on the back. You deserve it. So kudos, good job. And if you're down, this is where we need to dig a little deeper. And we're going to basically do a bit of a perspective check or an assessment check just to really understand, how that's progressed. And, it's where we get a little bit more specific. And you can do this for the up ones as well. And I'll take you through a few examples, right? I've got 3 here. So the first one was, for me, was actually under relationships. I had a goal this year that I wanted to meet with essentially one person each month that I hadn't done so within the last 2 years. Basically have coffee or lunch with them. And I wanted to do one each month for the 12 months. Now, over the last 90 days, I've actually done 5 out of 12. So I'm actually already ahead in terms of average progress, which is a big win, right? I didn't expect that. I was behind in the first month, and then come month 2, month 3, being March, I've actually been able to make that happen quite quickly. So, that's a big win. Pat yourself on the back. The next one that I want to give an example by, and this is 100% legit and being transparent here, is in my business. I want to earn $60,000 in profit this year, into my pocket, which equates to around $160 per day in profit. And currently I'm about 10.4 days behind this. Now I track this like a hawk, and if that's something you're interested in, let me know, leave a comment. But I'm basically about 10.5 or 10.4 days behind this. Now, this is where you need to start to do the assessment and check, okay, should I be concerned? Now, I think not dramatically, because we're 90 days in, we still have a long way to go for the rest of the year, but I need to be aware of my current position to help me understand, do I need to make some changes? And that's when we can start to really dive a little deeper. Now, sometimes when we see that we're not progressing or where we want to be, we can become disheartened, and we lose focus on where we're going or what we want, and it just becomes a little overwhelming. That's not what this is about, right? If you are struggling with this or you are feeling overwhelmed, put that aside for now. There's a way that we can get through that. But how I manage this is, well, I'm looking at this knowing that, okay, it's only 10 days behind. There's still opportunity to catch up. And how I manage this, as I said, is I'm going to keep going with my consistency, but start to see what options do I have to increase? Is there things that I can change? But also what I like to do is, if you are ticking a down in any of your goals, is also bring in perspective, right? Because as I said at the start of this whole episode was like, sometimes it's okay to be behind, because that's what's pushing you. It's helping you get to that next level. It's pushing you outside of your comfort level. If everything was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? So what I like to do is take some perspective. Now, I've been doing the reselling. This is my 2nd year. So if I actually look at this, where I was a year ago when I first started, on average, profit per day was $41. And at the moment, I'm doing a lot more than that. I'm doing $146 per day. And my total profit to date a year ago was about $3,200. Whereas at the time of this year, 90 days in, I'm at $13,000. So that perspective right there tells me, like, I'm doing something right. I'm on the right track. I'm moving and grooving. And no, I'm not where I want to be, but I am definitely in the right place to be going to where I need to be or want to be. And that helps give me some perspective of how far I've come and how I'm actually progressing. And, you never want to set a goal that's going to be easy. You want to set a goal that's going to be realistic, right? And this is still realistic. It's not too far-fetched. I haven't hit some road bumps and realized, nah, this is unrealistic. It is still very realistic. So doing that kind of process will help you maybe understand it a bit better. The other example that I want to share, or, a goal that I'll take you through and be honest with, is for health and exercise. I had set some ambitious goals around running this year. One of them to do 2 half marathons a month, and average 7 kilometers every day for 365 days to basically hit 2,500 kilometers compared to 2,000 kilometers last year. So how am I going? Well, the reality is I'm not doing well with these. The first one, around the half marathons, I've done 5 of 6, which isn't bad. I know I have plenty of time to make up for that, so not too concerned. Distance-wise, however, I'm about 253 kilometers behind plan. Basically, I'm averaging around 4.2 kilometers per day, which is a big gap. I'm basically half almost, right? This is where you have to start to think, okay, is this a priority for me? It is a priority for me. I want this. So I need to figure out how am I going to change it up. Now, I have actually just signed up for my 50K Ultra Marathon, which is until September, but my training starts next week, which naturally will bring in some new volumes. I knew this was coming, and it meant that I didn't have to double down for the first quarter of the year. What will be interesting is over the next 90 days is, do I get some momentum back? Will I be able to play some of that catch up? Now, last year I did a lot of cramming when I had my goal for 2,000, and I had to do my biggest month ever in December to catch up to that 2,000 kilometers. I don't want to be doing that this year. So once again, perspective, bringing in lessons learned from previous situations. How do I make sure I, don't get myself in that sticky situation? Plus, evaluating how much do I actually want this? Is it still a priority comparing back to some of those original wins that I've had in the last 90 days? That's 3 examples for you. And these are just some of mine to, once again, to give back that example to help you see how I'm doing it, something that's realistic to me or reality to me. But the next thing I want you to do, and we can do it together, is for any of these you can actually do this for, but more so we want to do this as a holistic view in general across all the goals, and especially any that you're struggling with. But it's a little exercise that I call Rose, Thorn, Bud. And this comes from a design thinking practice, or one of their, activities that you can do within that practice. And rose, usually pink, indicates things that are positive. Thorn, being blue, is usually something that is negative. And bud, being green, it just indicates something that has potential. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the above and we're going to apply it to your overall progress. When I say we're going to take the above, we're going to take the rose, thorn, bud, and we're going to apply it to your overall progress. And we can start to see some new patterns and some analysis, right? And I'm going to do this very high level to give you some perspective, to help give you some understanding of how you can do it for yourself. So for me, when I look at everything that I've just kind of discussed and some of my other goals that I'm doing, and I'm doing a lot, like I'm trying to get 10,000 downloads on the podcast, and I'm trying to get to a certain amount of revenue coming from my YouTube and all these different things. But the roses for me, which is things that are positive. I'm getting more done in the same amount of time than a year ago, meaning I'm able to do all these things. I'm doing extra things. I'm doing more things, and I've got exactly the same amount of time. We all have the same amount of time compared to a year ago. And it means that I've grown. It means that I'm doing things better. And it means that I'm able to do more things and search for more things, right? The next one is I'm growing and I'm being challenged. I am getting pushed to outside my comfort zone. Another positive is I'm happy. I'm feeling fun, and I'm not stressed. And I feel in control. Like everything that I'm doing, I'm accountable for. I get to control it. I get to dictate it. And I'm excited for what's coming. So there's some of the roses across everything that I've just spoken about. Now the thorns, the negatives. There's 2 here that really pop out. And you can do this as quite a deep exercise and try and do a minimum of 5. But for me, I'm just doing 2. The first one is I am questioning if I can retain this momentum. Can I continue to keep up with this? And that's something that I'm, just keeping in mind, because I am trying to do a lot of things, and, I'm setting that expectation on myself. So that's definitely a negative area, because I am doing a lot. Will I be able to keep up with that momentum? And that's something I have to realistically think about. The other one is I've had a lot of self-doubt and a lot of imposter syndrome popping up. And that's because I am trying to step out of my comfort zone. I'm trying to do different things that I've never done before. And that comes with this journey, but it's definitely been a huge negative. And sometimes, I will delay or slow down on things because I'm so stuck in my head. And that's a bad thing. That you don't want that. It's not good. The next one is bud. Now, bud indicates things that have potential. And I've got another 2 here. And I love this. Progress is progress, right? And looking back and everything that I'm doing, I'm progressing regardless. In different areas. Some areas above, some areas are under, some areas I'm just perfect, right? And I understand looking at this, I still have time to catch up. There's plenty of chance to do that. So I'm not really in a situation where I feel like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm still quite happy to proceed. And that's what you need to ask yourself as well. Are you still happy to proceed with some of these goals? And it's okay to change things. It's not the end of the world. But you need to really ask the question, are you still wanting these things? Now, the next one for Bud was, I've been having an amazing opportunity to help more people. And I want to continue to do this. And that's been really great. And I want to grow that and blossom that. So, yeah, that's the rose, thorn, bud. And I really encourage you to go through, spend some time on this. And, I can send you some links in the show notes of where you can do this, how you can do it, if you're still not too sure. From doing this, you may have hit some hard conversations. You may have struggled with the roses, or maybe you've just had too many thorns, and that's overwhelming. It really is. Or maybe you're not sure about the potential coming and the opportunities at hand. And I get it. There's so much. We all want to be the best, the biggest, and all these things. And it's not about that you want to prove it to necessarily anyone else, but you want to prove it to yourself, right? And I get that. And based on those, if you are feeling overwhelmed, if it's not what you expected, or maybe those conversations were just hard to digest, this is where you now need to act and take action on these insights. You need to ask yourself, have priorities changed? Does this mean you need to realign your focus? And it's okay to do that, but you do that consciously and do it with your own, intent. Maybe you can see you've lost track, and, maybe this is a wake-up call that you need to get back on track. So if you're motivated, if you still want it, how are you going to get back on track? What are you going to do about it? Maybe you found a new perspective in all this, and you've seen some new opportunities from those small wins that you mentioned at the start, the wins in the last 90 days. What are those? And maybe you can start to discover more of that, and dive into those. Or maybe you're exactly where you want to be, or right where you should be. And that's okay too. I think regardless, the big kicker and the final point is, these are things that we think about, right? And they require us to take action. But I think the next thing that you need to do is you need to be talking about it, talking to someone about it. And, whether it's finding a mentor or an accountability partner, or someone just to check in with, right? Whether it's a friend, family member, or a loved one, or someone else, right? And this will be key. And I'm learning this for myself too. And it just helps you work through all that headspace, all the things that you're filling up, and you're not just listening to your own voice, because your own voice becomes a bit tiring after a while. And I want to encourage you, there's multiple ways you can do this. You can reach out to friends, or if you've already got mentors or whatnot. But if you want to have a conversation, reach out. Let's have a conversation. You can hit me up on Instagram at Further Your Lifestyle, Twitter at Further Your Life, or even send us an email at hello@furtheryourlifestyle.com. More than happy to have a conversation with you and see what we can do to help. And I will be very clear, very transparent. I am working on a few things of this area, opening up some, one-on-one mentoring and accountability groups and things like that. I can't announce it at this point because I don't have all the finer details, but that is coming as well. Because at the end of the day, my goal for you guys is to help you further your lifestyle, right? And having these conversations, that's the whole purpose of this podcast, is to help you further your lifestyle, right? And, with things that will enable you, things that will inspire you, and things that will, motivate you to, I guess, pursue these things yourself. But that isn't easy by yourself. And if you can have some help, I'm happy to help with it too. So more on that to come. And if you've got any questions, of course, reach out. Let's continue the conversation. If you are watching on the YouTube, you can leave a comment too. But the big takeaway from all this is, go for all this, reflect on it, see what's changing. Do you need to change anything? Can you adjust something? Is everything going all good? And it's okay to make changes. But if you don't have these, check-ins, these pulse checks on a regular basis or irregular basis, it will come too late to be able to make up for it. And then you'll get disgruntled, you get frustrated, and you think, I haven't been able to achieve anything, even though you would have achieved something regardless. So I think it's a very important conversation to be having with yourself or someone else. And it just helps you just work through it, right? You could set an amazing goal, and whether you fail it and I don't know about it, I'm not going to think any different of you. But I do want you to be the best person you possibly can be. And if I can help with that, or if I can, by sharing this is going to help you get there, then kudos. That's what I want. All right, that's it, folks. Really do appreciate you being here. As I said, you can reach out. We can continue the conversation. If you've got any questions about any of this as well, or maybe you weren't too sure or what I was talking about, then yeah, let's continue the conversation. And really, really do appreciate you being here, hanging out and just listening. And you have a wonderful day. Cheers. Now, if you didn't know, we do have the podcast merch, and this is with a key focus of enamel pins. Now, if you haven't checked these out, make sure you do, because the intent of these are really just to be a small token and a reminder for you to charge on, to push on, and to further your lifestyle. Whether it is a gift for someone else to encourage them, or maybe to inspire them, or maybe it's a way to motivate yourself, or you can simply just make a purchase to simply support the podcast, which would be greatly appreciated. We do also have some sweaters and some long tees, so make sure you check it out. Link in the description and in the show notes. Really do appreciate it. Cheers.